And it works. I did it. I transitioned into the nice screen with Mr. Doomtrain. Welcome, Mr. Doomtrain.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we didn't plan this, but we loosely planned it getting together. And so technically this is going to be episode 1 of Call to Arms, a Warcraft podcast. And we demoed it with Mr. Williams in the prelude so to make sure this stuff works. And the only changes I made were to add the nice little gold Twitch logo. I added your name underneath the screen. And there we go.
Beautiful.
What do you think about that? It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. It's incredible what you're doing, Mike.
Well, I haven't done anything yet. Let's see what happens when we get, I don't know, 100 episodes into this and see where it takes us. I mean, at some point we can have like a literal call to arms where we can have multiple people in and really shoot the shit on things when maybe even when patch releases come out or something big comes out and community stuff that we could talk about. But at least for now, we're going to be doing guest community interviews like this with you, New Williams, other people, and talk about Warcraft and talk about how you got into Warcraft, what you're doing, pet peeves, all kinds of stuff. So we'll get into that, Mr. Doomtrain. What brought you to Warcraft? How did you get into it?
Oh, this goes back 400 years ago. Origin- originally, my dad was a computer tech a long time ago, and I got into Warcraft because we were big Blizzard fans. We played Diablo 1. We used to set timers. My dad bought Warcraft 1 and then Warcraft 2 and the expansion. Uh, so it was something that I was finagled with on the computer. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And then 13 years old, specifically Warcraft 3, I was actually working on my dad's duplex with his girlfriend at the time. And we were at Walmart. And I go, oh my gosh, Warcraft 3.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, I see the orc, yeah, on the label, and I saw the dark back when you used to have to buy computer games, at the store. And it was just something like, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And it really cut my addiction from Diablo 2 because that was very much of sucking my soul for many, many years until Warcraft 3.
Same. It sucked my soul till the end. I played that game religiously in high school. I mean, we started with StarCraft 1, but as soon as Diablo 2 came out, I think I really got into Diablo 2 once the expansion came out and a friend of mine was playing it like crazy and then he got me into it. And
It
yeah,
actually, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I mean, it's just revolutionary for what a game that is. And then 20 something years later, like Warcraft, that people still play it. It's amazing.
I think, and I alluded to this with Williams when we were talking about it, I think Blizzard just opened up the doorway to great game company making great games, delivering, and people just getting addicted to everything they put out. And I don't mean, look at us now. How many years? 20 years later, we're playing Warcraft 3 still. I'm pretty sure I got it at like EB Games when EB Games was here. I mean, now it's back to GameStop, but I remember picking that up and I was like, can't wait to play this at the box forever. And I regret getting rid of the box, getting rid of the art, getting rid of everything. Just like I regret getting rid of my comics and my original Super Nintendo that I bought with my birthday money. Um, if I could go back in time and tell myself, my younger self, don't get rid of anything and don't take anything out of the plastic, to totally do that again. But so fast forward to 20 something years later. When did you get into the gym community?
Oh, so the gym community, it was wild. So I turned on my stream Blash. I don't even know, 2 years ago now, last year. Um, I actually just started streaming one day. So we had a big blizzard here in Buffalo.
Mm.
There was like I don't know, 50 people died, 150 people died. I was barricaded in
Was
for
it that?
about
Was it a
a
couple of years ago?
yeah, 2
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah, yeah.
I was barricaded in for about a week in my apartment, and actually, it got so bad, it got so cold. It was like I don't know, like in Celsius, but it was like minus 30 Fahrenheit. So probably,
Oh wow.
m- yeah, it was everything was freezing. And I actually had to redo my whole apartment to move my bed from the window because it got so cold. The draft was so bad, the heat couldn't keep up. So I had a bottle of whiskey from the Super Bowl that my neighbor gave me, and I had a sip. I was like, you know what, I haven't played in a while, and I looked at my BattleNet account, and I go, oh, let me download Warcraft 3 just because it's a game that's something different that I was playing at the time, Path of Exile, action RPGs, and such.
Yeah.
And turn on my stream. Back to Warcraft raids me. So I'm like 10 minutes in. I haven't played this game in 13 years at this point, and all of a sudden I have like 1,000 people in there,
That's
and
so funny.
oh, holy smokes! And I'm like, I just kept drinking the whiskey. I was so nervous. I was playing on War 3 Champions because they found out about it on Back to Warcraft. I go, oh, okay. Because Warcraft Reforged didn't do anything for me. I refunded it instantly. I took one look at it. I go, this is horrible. Uh, yeah, and the rest is history. The next day, I turned my stream on, then ToD rated me. And funny enough, I was like, wow, I used to write articles about ToD on WC Replays. And it was crazy that next thing I know, within a week, ToD's coaching me. I was probably 600 or 800 MMR at this time, getting flamed up the yin yang and 4v4 because I saw they had 4v4. I was like, oh man, I remember this game mode. Just having a joy, just having a great time, reminiscing about a lot of things growing up. And yeah, it was crazy because then people from the War 3 United community came by, and then I found out about Gym League on the Discord, Baron, everybody. It was crazy. Uh, it instantly picked off for me within, I would say, like a month. It was a whirlwind.
That's incredible. You don't typically hear people starting streaming out of nowhere and then all of a sudden get instantly I don't want to say celebrity status, but instantly known. Now, granted, it's not 100,000 people that you're streaming to all the time, but typically streamers who are streaming to nobody who just come in into a game, they're like streaming to zero people for the longest time, or one person, I should say, uh, and then having Back to Warcraft raid you and then ToD raid you. By the way, which we did mention that Back to Warcraft is Warcraft. Without them, I think the game would be dead in the water. Um,
100%.
I know, and then W3C and what they've done with the server and the community events and the seasons and back Warcraft streaming and keeping the game alive in the community, and then look at them doing another Rah Rah land already, or I say a Rah Rah land, but and then recently talking about ToD with some people, and people are like, everybody has their opinion on ToD, but I'm like, ToD A knows the game very well. B, he used to do a lot of StarCraft casting, right?
Yeah.
And then now he's doing coaching for GNL, and I was in there for one of the coaching sessions he did with Cage, and I was pretty enlightening. Like he's got such a pulse on the like a finger on the pulse on the game, and he knows what's going on. And I feel like if he wanted to, because he just turns on his stream and he plays and people show up, but if he wanted to and he wanted to be a more proficient streamer, I think he could do it. If that was something you wanted to do. But going back to that, you getting rated by them and everything, um, that's amazing, and just being instantly pulled into the community like that. I I don't know anybody who's had that experience before.
Well, the funny thing too, Mike, is I didn't know how to reach out to them. So I googled the Warcraft 3 subreddit, and I was like, this is the only way I can say thank you guys, because it was about a year after I had to put my cat down, so I was feeling a type of way with the weather and everything, and I just like I wanted to escape for a night, and I go, wow, this is really amazing, because Back to Warcraft rated me about an hour before I went to bed, so I stayed up for like 3 more hours. I had to be at work. I had to work in the morning at like 7 a.m. I go, oh my gosh, like, but it was so riveting. It was such a rush. And then 2 days later, so that Tuesday and then Thursday, Todd rated me. So that night, Friday, I wrote a Reddit post, and I just said, "Hey guys, I just want to say thank you for this week. Has been incredible. Uh, back to Warcraft and Todd. I don't know how to reach out to you guys." And funny enough, Neo actually commented on that post, and then because of that, there was like 50 people that was like, "Oh, what's your channel?" Like just on a post, something so wholesome, and then organically, I had like 200 followers within, say, like 5 days, 6 days. It was something like astronomical. I went from like grinding out, maybe I had like 80 view or 80 followers to like 330 or 350 followers by the end of the next week.
That's amazing.
Very thankful. Very thankful. Never forget where you come from. That's for sure.
That's so cool. Um, how did they pick you? Did they just like we're gonna raid somebody random?
I honestly have no idea because I decided to turn on. I had stage fright even before I was streaming to nobody, and I'm looking at the game. I go, I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. I go, like, this doesn't make sense. What are these hotkeys? I forgot this. And of course, I'm getting called noob, everything else because of the default 1500 MMR you start at.
Yeah.
So I'm playing 4v4, which is, the cesspool of it all. And guys are like, what are you doing, noob? I'm like, this is my first game in 14 years. So I'm like most of the guys I flame now. They're like, oh, I'm just from Battle now. I go, oh, noob, go back to the lobby, watch some replays. You
Go.
know, yeah, no, it's funny the personification that I do have.
I think now about Hyperreal, who's I think pushing 700 plus to 800 MMR on W3C, and he says I'm never gonna see 1500 or whatever. I'm like everybody was at a certain MMR at one point. Like just finding out that you were 600 MMR and then getting coached by Todd, and then now you're 1500 plus MMR give or take.
Yep.
Everybody can climb at some point. Just depends how long it takes, and how much time you put in. But um, having done all that, and you're playing a lot of fours lately, and then I see you dabbling in some FFA, and we played some solo games and had some solo matches together. And I think at one point too, like when we would play, I couldn't beat you. I couldn't beat Soft Ice Cream. I couldn't beat a bunch of guys. Thought going back to like last year, I think at some point, and I think I've got to a point where I'm like, okay, I can hang with Doom. I can hang with guys at this level now. I could that kind of stuff. But it's cool to kind of grow with guys in the community like that. You're all kind of similar MMR at the same place, and then all of a sudden this guy reached, so you want to do a little bit better. Like there's a guy like T Labet. Like T Labet was on my Peon League when I first got in off my concussion when I was at home, and I'm like, okay, I got to start doing something, and I could only manage like 1 to 3 games of Warcraft a day. Like and the doctor's like, it's okay, you can touch the computer, you can go sit down, but like minimize how much exposure you have to everything and make sure you rest, and the same thing with reading and all that stuff. So I literally sat home watching Back to Warcraft. That's how I got into Baron's channel, and that's how I learned about the community because Baron made fun of me and all that stuff. But it's funny that some guys like give them a year and they'll make progress. And granted, some guys don't make progress and they stay at the same level for a long time, but there's nothing wrong with that at all. But going forward, let's talk about some of your. Well, you play human. Let's talk about some of your favorite strategies or pocket cheeses that you like to do because you got a couple of those. You like to flame
Yeah.
people.
Oh, I think so. I know I'm not a very good player. So the thing is, it's funny because to get back to it, this is how I started with like trash talking and everything. Is I was watching a live stream of Artosis.
Hmm.
Okay, and Artosis is I grew up watching him on GSL StarCraft 2 when it first came out.
Yep.
and him and Tastosis, the whole, they are so smart in the way they see the game, build orders, timings. It's much like how Todd and those very much high level pros see the game. When we're playing chess, checkers, they're playing 5D chess.
Yeah.
So they are 5 moves ahead. They can predict what's going to happen. And I find it very fascinating on certain nuances in that way. So I go to Artosis stream. He's streaming StarCraft 1. And all of a sudden, he is as belligerent as all hell. And I loved it. The crowd is loving it. And I go, man, this is like not him. He's a father. He's like 2, 3 kids now. And he is the same angry 15-year-old on stream like when we were 15. Okay, just F you, you're trash. This guy's a hacker, cheeser, this guy sucks. I somehow in my brain was like, this personification would be hilarious because I am such a gentle giant to everybody and I love everybody. I care for everybody. It would be great that I just take this heel position. And so then that started with the cheeses because I go, it was GNL or GNO, and then someone told me about Naga Tower Push,
Hmm.
and I was playing against elves, and I was struggling. I was even talking to Leon because I was in his channel. I was like, I don't know how to beat elf. He's like, well, you just play rifles. I go, that makes no sense because you see a bear, they're like 1,000 HP, and you got a 500 HP rifle. But I found out that towers are very strong versus elf. Even if they see it, it's not like towers from a long time ago. The repair rate is lesser, where you need more peons. They don't build as fast, repair as
Yeah.
fast. So, but my favorite cheese is either Naga, and I saw Leon beat Life, who's a very good elf player, with Tinker tower push, and I go, oh, that makes sense. But my ultimate favorite cheese is actually Paladin Tower Rush against Elf.
Paladin?
Yes.
How? Explain that.
Okay, so there's one or two. So what you can do, like in my brain, because it's not so much a theory as opposed to what I just see. Maybe it is kind of theory, but like, what can a what can a hero do for the entire army or the pressure, like a counter pick, kind of like in Dota or just in general. So like Demon Hunter is gonna mana burn a Death Knight. So what happens? Sometimes they go Unholy Aura level 1
Yeah.
because there's no point. I realized, well, if they go keeper, biggest thing was immolation. So I go, Holy Light's really good. It's 65 mana. I can maybe save 1 or 2 footies more versus immolation. And if he goes mana burn, I go divine shield and I can just surround him. Doesn't work for like halfway decent players, but it worked my way up.
Yeah.
Uh, so you have a tanky frontliner with Paladin. He moves fast, similar to Mountain King. I know, like I was doing Mountain King Tower Rush, and then Starbuck made it look really good, which was hilarious because it's like the ultimate cheese for me.
Hmm.
Uh, and I just started doing it against players that I don't think in a million years I would beat, and they just couldn't handle Uther. There's just a party in your base with Uther, 5 footies, 5 militia. There's something so intimidating about that, well, you can't kill the hero because I go Divine Shield. And that's a very long, even 15 seconds doesn't seem like a long time. I'll tell you what, early game could make all the difference. Couple extra attacks. The move speed is fantastic. Uh, yeah, I just tried it one day and then I beat like 12 elves in a row with Paladin Tower Rush.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, don't ask me how. I was just clicked it one day and I just that's how my brain functions. I go, hey, you know what? This sounds good. Let me try it out. And then I test it. Sickle's like, I don't know how anybody like should lose to that, and they do. Sickle's 2.1k or 2,000 MMR in World 3 champions.
Yeah.
He's a he's a very good elf player. He beat Grubby when Grubby was undead, so on BattleNet, which was really cool.
I saw that. I saw that. I was in Grubby's chat when that happened. Yeah. But Stickla's the man. He's a good guy. But
Awesome guy.
streams I mean, I've tried to pop into everybody's channels, but everybody streams at different times. But going back to the paladin thing, you've done Naga Tower Rush against me. I think you've done a Fire Lord Tower Rush against me. You've done it with Night Elf. You've done Keeper of the Grove with APs and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
I think I've experienced the sum of the doom, except for the paladin one. You've never done that against me. I hope not to experience it, or but I want to see it. I definitely want to
Well,
see it.
but both players have to suffer. I have to suffer when I'm doing that because it gets very stressful, especially uh, peasants. To me, sometimes are like the older games. So I think how sometimes the way they move is clunky, but
Yeah,
it's just the game. It's not as fluid as some other games you play now, especially like StarCraft 2, where you can have more than 12 units. And they move the way that I envision how like I want my unit to move, and that's so hard to replicate, especially from a game that's 24 years old, 22 years old. If we're just going back to Reign of Chaos, but I mean in general, uh, a lot of upgrades and a lot of changes. So sometimes you click somewhere, they run back or they run forward. So any unit, it makes it very challenging in that way too. Well, I want my peasant here. And then the other issue is sometimes I block my peasants in by building a tower or a farm. Uh, and then my peasant is trapped and I can lose the game like that.
yeah. Happened to Soft Ice Cream against Cage in their first GNL match, where the way he built his base, the knights popped out of the barracks and they got stuck. So he had two of them stuck at home. Could have used them. Could have won the fight with them too. And so build, but base layout's so huge. Like it's not just build units and go. It's your base layout can save you in a game.
Yeah. Uh, everything, like I've said time and time again, everything has been so refined now in Warcraft. Even in StarCraft, there's a little bit that I find all RTS is very interesting. The thought process, build orders, theory crafting on certain things, but because it's not just uh, you. I'm not saying everyone's high IQ. I'm just saying like the way everyone thinks differently, it could be applied from all sorts of different backgrounds to a real time strategy. So sometimes you don't always have to play the meta. You can play the player, their weaknesses and their holes, and you can find those vulnerabilities. Some will lack macro, others will die to early pressure because they get nervous or whatever. Things like this. There's certain holes in my game, in my play that I've definitely noticed as the higher I climb, it's definitely more exploitable. So base layout is one of those issues that I've had for a very long time. Uh, I've lost many games because I build my archmage and he gets stuck, and I've lost. I can probably count on both my hands how many times I've just left the game because I got my archmage stuck. Very unfortunate.
It sucks when that happens though, and I find it does happen a lot against human players a lot. I guess the way the altar is and their base layouts with all the buildings and the farms, always see archmages getting stuck. I mean, sometimes other heroes too from other races, but typically humans have that issue. Um, so going forward, so you started. I mean, you were doing solo for a while and you've been bouncing around, but now you're really pushing and heavy on the fours, and you gotta tell everybody about the force situation, because when I go watch you, there's always somebody talking trash in the game. There's always somebody doing a grief report in W3 in the Discord and saying this guy went mass chims blade uh, whatchamacallit, BM, and it just flame strike and did build units and lost us the game. And sometimes I'm there for these games and I'm watching and I'm like, but the allies you have, they're terrible and they're griefing and they're upset. But then they expand. They have no units and they're going mass blue dragons and they wonder why they lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, I I I wish I don't know. I find it. I remember so when I used to play. like I used the term semi-pro back in the day. That was like anybody that made like $10 off the game. You're like considered semi-pro, especially in America. It was times were very different
Hmm.
when I was playing in the early days. Um, I was spending more time writing articles, and I found it more of just like the thinking, the logistics, the game. And I said this too. There was a lot of strategies that were very gated for a while. I know Grubby's touched on some stones about that, especially with like the Sky Griffin push and things like this. And there was like Druids of the Talon, and when that came out, Moon Law didn't lose a game versus Orc for like an entire like almost 2 years or something.
Right.
And so touching on that, 4v4 was very much two strategies. This is back then, which was rush or CC, which means creep counter. Nightmares about that. Like you could do anything. It was a wild wild west because build orders weren't refined. You make your hero one unit, you're level one, you just run right across. Um, Now I think having a lot of the top pros or high MMR solo players, especially, kind of dictate what to play because they're like, oh, Todd plays a lot of fours. Now, I mean, for a while, even the Koreans and the Chinese players were playing fours, like a lot of fours.
Yeah.
So the quality was much more higher. But where I play at is the hellhole. So like you're at the hotel, okay? And this is the way I can explain it. You're at the hotel and you're like, "Hey, you know what? You get the nicest room, two showers. No, I get the one with cockroaches. Okay? I got the one with pee stains on it. Half the mattress is missing. There's holes in the curtains, rotted out walls. That's what my games feel like. So I don't think everyone has. I think everyone has their own unique play style, but when you're at the loading screen and you know five of the players what they're going to do strategy wise, you're like, yeah, it's a loss. It doesn't matter what you do. You are one person out of four, and it makes it very challenging in that way. Of well, why do you fast tech on the outside? They send a whisk scout, and then you get pushed by two and you die. And then you go, well, my ally never helped me. I go, yeah, no more than 12 supply the entire game. Bottom of the score, like things that just like it blows my mind, and I really hope that some of these people don't drive because the way their arguments are, they take no accountability. And not that like I really care because it's just a game, right? And, we can all like flame each other, blah blah blah. Hey, you suck, which is fine. And I was very fortunate enough to learn basic build orders, creep routes from Todd. He has a YouTube video for like basic human guide. So I got very lucky early. And I wasn't so dark and harsh on my allies for a very long time. And then when you start seeing it all the time, though, it becomes very draining.
Yes.
Uh, the same stuff. I mean, like it's not a foregone, conclusion of what's going to happen here. I can predict it 10 minutes before. Oh no, you're going to go feed your hero. You don't have a TP. I don't carry TP. It's a big error on my part too. Yeah, but you get tilted in that way of you want to control as much as you can, which makes solo much easier. That your skill can be very much more refined, and you can showcase your skill. As opposed to 4v4, you are at the mercy of the slot machine. You can have amazing allies, you can have bots, you have people like me that just do all sorts of things that you think I'm griefing, and I'm not. I'm just like, I'm bored of the meta. 4v4 is very much, especially in the MMR, I'm talking from like 1100 to probably 1600. Because the player base is so small, things get skewed. We have newer players coming in because, like, when BattleNet's down, so we had like an all-time high of viewer players a month ago, 2 months ago, when
Yeah.
it was down for like 3 days.
Yeah.
So, which is great. Unfortunately, you picked the wrong game mode because it's very toxic in that way, which I'm not defending it. I'm just saying it is what it is. The trash talking is hilarious. It gives me very much like wrestling vibes. So you got this guy, he's like all the heel. So I find it more entertaining than anything. But yeah, it's tough. It takes real mental fortitude to play 4v4. It is a special place that you have to go to withstand the temperature of 4v4. No doubt.
I
No doubt.
I hated watching 4v4 for the longest time. I'll come watch you play 4v4. I typically won't watch anybody else play 4v4. And then I was like, I can't find solo games. I can't find solo games. Imagine that. Like that's a bit worrisome. And I'm like, depending on what race I'm playing, like 1450, 1515, working and dead. And I'll go to Night Elf and I'll go to this. Can't find a game. I'm like, okay, I'll go start playing some 4v4. So I played a little bit, and then I can see what you're talking about with people like just doing their own things, not really paying attention to what's happening. Not usually go 2 and 2 depending on the map. You these two take the left side, these two take the right side, and you go, and no communication, and then just people like trash talking you and say I'm gonna report you and this guy sucks and all this stuff. It's like just play the game. Like what the fuck's going on? Like nobody has a
Yeah.
clue at that level, and it's like okay, and then you maybe get a really good player on your team. You feel bad for them, like they're stuck with me, but then I'm stuck with the guy who's even worse. Anyways, so I start dabbling in that, and again, I don't like watching it too much. Like ToD, going back to ToD because ToD was the guys are talking about ToD today in the Discord channel. Uh, ToD's really good at watching FFA and solo. I'll watch ToD all day doing that, but I won't go watch ToD play 4v4. I just don't like 4v4. I'll play it. It's more fun playing it, but watching it's just one of those modes where it's like there's too much going on. But what a lot of guys have alluded on is that if you're struggling with like microing an army in general, like a lots of units, Soft Ice Cream even said this. Go play 4v4, like go dabble in that. Go play a bunch of games, and you're gonna learn how to just like manage a small army or a relatively big army in a sea of units, and then share units with your allies and try to macro not just yours but all of them and micro them, and you like it helps you when you go back to solo. And keep in mind that you keep in mind your builds and your timings and stuff in solo, but it actually does help you when you're playing, regardless of win or loss. Because at some point you're just like, all right, my allies suck, but can I actually do something here or manage all my units and outmuster the guys on the other side and do something? And sometimes you can. Sometimes you're like, you surprise yourself. You're like, oh my god, I had like a Farseer and like 10 headhunters, and I just killed like all these guys. And then you get into a game, and you get smoked. But you know that's that's a total
Yeah.
other story.
The best player I'm going to tell you to watch, who is I noticed this probably 7 months ago, is Franzis.
Yeah,
Franzis is such an enabler for his team. Um, I talked to him one day, but I just sat there on his stream one day and I just watched his gameplay. He's always fixing his allies' units like based on positioning, but in big fights, he will always help enable his heroes, not only for himself but his allies. So what does that mean? Invulnerable potions being moved around, scrolls of healing, claws of attack being transferred. I watched this guy one day.
on the days you're like it's pretty quiet, the kids have gone to bed, and they're not going to wake up, and it's like, no, one of them's got to wake up and have snotty noses and can't sleep. But anyways, sorry, continue what you're saying.
Oh yeah. So what I was just saying is, frenzies is one of the. So I think when you get to, I'm talking specifically 4v4. You could have people like Hitman, who's just gifted in both strategy, skill, everything. All the, and people are gonna say what they want about Hitman. People are gonna say what they want about ToD. People are, you know, um, some people might think I look at it this way: outspoken. People are just authentic, whether you hate them or love them. You can't take away their authenticity. Like ToD hasn't changed in since the pro days. I mean, I'm going back to the glory days of Warcraft. He hasn't changed at all, but he does care and he wants everybody to be better, an enabler in that way. So strategies again. But Franzis, I just watched just helping to enable the team for greater success. And it's something I think at the higher MMR, because 4v4 skill level is such a casual game mode. But when the pros started to get in and the high solo players started to take over, it really changed the game. Especially in fours. Uh, so it took it from this casual, try to enjoy a few games, an evening after work to like, no, it's as grindy as solo is, if not worse, because it's not only you, it's dictated by seven other players. Uh, and sometimes you can find a foolproof strategy, but I think honestly, communication, synergy, trying to communicate with your ally what they're going to do and try to work with them in that way.
And that's why I don't grind fours. Too much. But yeah, you've alluded on some good people in Franzi. I haven't seen him play in a while, but there's not too many players like that are Sidney Crosby esque that try to make people around them better in Warcraft.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially 4v4 is such a mess where it's the locker room trash talking and flame your ally, and then they'll play better, which doesn't work. It just tilts them into oblivion, and they feed everything, and they type dash GG and they leave the game, and then they get reported for early leave or grief. It's definitely makes me laugh on some accounts of like this. There's no way this is possible. Is this a Twilight Zone? I had a guy that made uh 15 Moonwells, and then by minute 40, he pumped out two Dryads. And
Did
I'm
he did he
like,
have a warden?
no, he went. What did he go? Keeper, solo keeper.
Oh,
For that was it. And I'm human on the inside. I'm just watching this guy go. And the funniest thing is he built his base. The way he built his Huntress Hall and the Moonwells were similar to a phallus. So
um,
it made me laugh when I look on the map. That was a shape of that, and I had a good chuckle. And then I was like, "Where's your units? You're on 22 supply for 30 minutes at this point." But it's uh, yeah, it's a glutton for punishment. But I think I do it more honestly, more for the viewership because there's a lot of 4v4 players that watch. They play and they watch, and I somehow got swooped in the 4v4 community, and then that's like for a while that's all I played. But I was like, if like GNL comes out or Fountain of Manor, then I'll start grinding solo because it's something to work towards. I think in Warcraft you need to set goals. I think it's very important to have a goal, something to drive. You rather be MMR, perfecting the build, a creep route, anything to keep you going forward to get that little bit. Because it's just like anything. Once you lose interest, then it's good luck trying to get that back. It's very hard to find that, keep that fire going.
that's why I like the casting aspect of it. Do tournaments or grab a GNL game or a Fountain of Manor game or do some Flow TV casting because you get to see what the great players do. You get to see players who are better than you. You get to see players who are learning, and then now I'm at a point where I can help players who are not beneath me, but like not at my level, who are below me in my level. That things I've learned that I can help them with. And so sometimes like I'll go in the Discord and we'll play some custom games with some of the guys who are like 600 MMR, 900 or 1000. It's like, you know, I played, who was it? Kurt Russell the other day. And I was Night Elf. I went random. I was Night Elf. And I was just like, I'm going to mess around a little bit. And I went Dark Ranger and Firelord, which is not a good idea for me as Night Elf. And Kurt beat me, and Kurt's I think 1250 or something like that MMR. I mean, my Night Elf is not 1500 or whatever, but you know, doing practicing, and then we played a bunch of games prior to that, so I'd beat him with Undead and Orc and all that stuff. But doing games like that with players who are learning, that could play better players than them, can help them improve. Just like, you know, when we play players that are better than us or get coached by better players, and it's makes the game more exciting, like especially the interacting with the community or being in the Discord, uh like just the camaraderie with everybody, and not the there's also the griefing side and the trolls that are out there and the guys that are constantly getting banned, and There's one guy right now. He's going in and he's making fun of Franzi constantly, and he's going into every single channel, and he's getting banned in every single channel, and I think he's banned in W3C, and it's like why even waste your time doing that? Like what the fuck's wrong with these guys? Honestly, like I could get some people being a dickhead about certain things and just being a pain in the butt when you're playing the game, or being rude or stuff like that, but like legitimately going out of your way to harass somebody and harass everybody constantly, that kind of stuff I don't like it. I don't tolerate it. But it's not everybody, it's some of them.
And the camaraderie's been the biggest thing. Cause never thought in a million years I'd just be casually talking to Todd one day. Like I said, I put the way I put perspective for me, especially with how Warcraft, even Taker, I used to write articles about him with like his tower pushes, Tower Taker, when he was part of MTW. Uh, like, it's so funny that I don't know if it would be good or bad to have streaming services back then, like, like Twitch and things, because when we used to record replays, we used to use Winamp, uh, and we
Yeah.
would have to record, and then we would have to set a start. So it's like, okay, we're gonna go over this replay, pause at the 5 second mark, so we can sync everything together. It really is. Seeing how not only the game, but just general technology, streaming services, people that stream Warcraft, just in general, there's so much that I have found so profound and fascinating in so many parts of life. 35 years old now, from being 12, 13. My first website that I wrote on was the warcraftstrategy.com, and it sounds like a spam site. It really does. It's like you Google it, it's like, oh, suggest, like Ask Jeeves, right? This is like how this website. And it was so funny because I was in 8th grade. I go to the library because I could only use my computer on weekends. My dad was very strict about this because he wanted to keep my grades, and which I don't blame him. So I would do all my articles in the morning before my first class. Uh, for a homeroom, and that's how I would do it. I would go in the morning, 7th, 8th grade, type everything up, send it out. I thought about the game, try to thoughts and opinions, and it was so cool that I got to write on there. And then I found out about WC replays, like Talk the Lotto, Watch Lotto, Box. I mean, Box and I go way back. Some of these players, it's crazy to think that very insignificant exchanges, but in our mid 30s, or late 30s for some of us. Some players are much older than I am too. Not 3, 4 years, but I look at it this way: they were 18 years old, traveling around the world, China, Korea, and I'm sitting at home writing about it, drooling like, wow, that must be so cool. When gaming was so underground and not so mainstream. When nerd actually was like a bad thing, but we were all collective nerds. Now it's just a general term.
I'm thinking back to all the tournaments and stuff I used to participate in, the Super Nintendo tournaments, the StarCraft 1 tournaments. There was a StarCraft 1 tournament at college, because we're different here. We have high school, college, and then university. It was supposed to be a solo tournament, and I probably would have won the whole thing. But then we got there, they changed it to a 4v4 StarCraft tournament. And, you didn't get to pick your allies. You just kind of got paired with people. So, anyways, long story short, my all three members of my team die, and it's 4v1, but they couldn't kill me, and the game lasted for like half an hour, 45 minutes of me playing against these guys. And I had like an entire crowd of nerds behind me watching me, like, oh my god, he's got one marine, he's killing everybody, like, and yeah, the game's evolved since then, but I was pretty damn good at StarCraft 1 back then too. And it's just the things. And I think when Warcraft came out, I think that, where did it came out? It came out in early 2000s, right?
2001
Yeah.
for Reign of Chaos and 2002 for the Frozen Throne, or it could be 2002 and 2003, something like that. It
So
was
I,
like a year apart though.
I feel like we installed it in like high school or in college in like the computer lab or something. And so whenever the teacher was teaching, we'd be playing Warcraft on the freaking computer when class was going on because you always get the back one turned. I can't remember if it was high school or college, but like stuff like that. And you're right, like everything was so underground. I went to a couple of gaming tournaments. Like I won an NHL '94 tournament in person. Now that I'm playing NHL '94 online, it's a whole other ball game. Everybody's got happy MMR. They're all like crazy good, but things have definitely evolved. And the one thing you alluded to about the technology and the streaming is that you can learn so fast. Like people are putting study guides and build guides and tips and how do you do this? How do you do this? You go to YouTube, you can learn anything. You can learn change your tire. No, you go change your toilet, which I actually had a conversation with a guy the other day. I'm like, don't tell me you didn't change your own toilet. Like you could. That's so easy. Like you could do that. Just go to YouTube. Honestly, find everything. It's the same thing with the games. And people, I guess, life's busy, stressful. Let's play games. Let's play Warcraft. Let's go learn about it and see how we can get better and see who we can talk to. And like, oh, let's go watch Doom. Let's go watch this guy. So it's definitely kind of like I know I speak for myself, but I think a lot of guys have the same issues. Like your in real life friends, you've cut them out and you've kind of made new ones online through something with that common interest. Because how many people do I know that go to work or on the street or my friends I grew up with that like Warcraft now or hockey or anything? Nobody likes playing board games anymore. I don't know if you've ever done this. I was just talking about this the other day. Man, I remember going over to this guy's house. There was like eight of us or five of us, and we just have cigars, pizza, rum, whatever food, and we'd stay there all the whole day, all night, and we get like a giant like Lord of the Rings board game or Risk, and we would set up the table. And those board games are super complicated, like those elaborate Lord of the Ring games and things like that. And you would have like 1,000 pieces, and you would take your time, and we would do that stuff. And you're like just hanging out with buddies, and like again, it's kind of I guess underground. Like you wouldn't tell women that you were playing Lord of the Rings board game on Saturday night or something like that, or Warcraft Sunday all night, or Diablo too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I just think about, I think relationships that we had where we were more, I think more open communication. I think social media has been a big, like good and bad. That the social behaviors with antisocial behaviors now.
Mm.
That how many people don't talk face to face anymore? It's, oh, you posted this, or you go together and you're just taking pictures, like you're just looking at your cell phone all day. I think the camaraderie of that has gone away. Uh, you know, have friends come over. I was very lucky growing up that I had most of the game systems, so all my neighbors, all the kids, I knew everybody. You don't know your neighbors anymore. Up and down the block, come hang out, spend the night. You know, on weekends we go sleep over at each other's houses. Sunday we go get ready for school because we're all on the same bus stop. I mean, it's like, I don't know, when WWF or WCW Championship like came out on Nintendo 64, that was like a big thing for us
Oh yeah.
because wrestling was so prominent in the late 90s. And you had like 1996, 1997, you had like Raw's War, the WWF games, the WCW games. You look at those graphics now, they look like Roblox. They look terrible. But I'll tell you what, it was something like GoldenEye,
Oh, so good.
playing together on the split screen, but being there with each other and enjoying those moments. I think something that will be cherished forever. And I just think that magic is gone now. I just think people are just so, you know, I think maybe with streaming creating parasocial relationships, obviously. Uh, but not only that, I rather not talk to you. Like people are not people anymore. And then you see it. eh, I'm not saying this to like everybody. I'm just saying like the general consensus is like I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be around anybody. I rather just do my own thing, not isolation and like in a bad way. I go. It's just I'm trying to have fun or I'm trying to enjoy a hobby. But like with Warcraft, we're all there for the same reason. We're enjoying a hobby, any game. You know, the camaraderie, the the discords, the foundation of everything. It's like being a kid again in that way, where you got people that are very passionate about it. You know, you got people that are very casual, kind of skeptical. It's like, ah, what are you nerds doing? Like, ah, we're learning a game. But you look at how much is it? It's time, mathematics, especially because counters now with like the clocks and stuff. They're like, oh well, I have 15 seconds to do this, and you're trying to work everything out. It's like board games back then was so cool. Monopoly, I was a big fan of Monopoly growing up. 12 hours just to like flip the board over because you get screwed.
Yep.
Boardwalk turns into $5,000 every time I get it, and I always go to jail. Rigged.
Oh, I love Monopoly. Risk was pretty good. Yes, we call it risk of friendship because somebody would always leave mad and not talk to you for like a week because you screwed them over in the game. I'm like, but think about it. It's like FFA in Warcraft, like it's gonna stab you in the back the second I get a chance.
Yeah, it's that, and then like my grandmother always got me into board games too. Chinese checkers, Clue,
Mm.
Trouble. Uh, you know, and it's very funny how like you see something physical and then you're able to translate it into graphics, into video, into you know something from here into 3D or 2D. Yeah, at the time too, for like a lot of 2D games. Uh, and then the revolutionary of games. And I just think it's stuff like that. But it's a very rare genre. Like RTS is something very because it's not instant gratification. I think the way we are now, for a lot of people, is I want it now. I want it now. Relationships are being destroyed because, well, if it doesn't work out now, then I got something else to do instead of trying to fight through and try to work through it and try to get the bigger feeling or that bigger goal.
Yeah, all the kids today they play Roblox, Call of Duty, and Minecraft, and that is quick gun, quick draw, fast pass, everything at your disposal, and simplistic to, I mean, just simplistic in general. Fortnite and game like Warcraft, like we get some occasional new young blood that comes in, but and lately we're getting new players, like you said. A lot of that too has to do with either the server going down or the LOL community all of a sudden saying, "Hey, let's play Warcraft," and all those stupid guys like screaming at each other trying to play Warcraft, and then Grubby jumping on board. Which, by the way, I feel like his stream has picked up in viewership since he collaborated with those guys because now he's drawing from their audience for Warcraft. And so now he's
Mm-hmm.
playing more Warcraft. I know lately it's Direct Strike, but he's playing more Warcraft. And now all those people are coming back. 'Cause for a while, it looked like he was kind of dwindling down a little bit, and now he's coming back up. Now that he's coming back to Warcraft a little bit, even though he's not necessarily playing competitively. But as a result, you get new players who are like, "Hey, Krubby's playing or so and so's playing. Let me go download this. Let me go buy it. I haven't played this in 15 years, 20 years. So then I've seen it. I go on W3C and I go play a game and I queue up and I get somebody with 1500 unranked. I'm like, this is a new player. Like this is definitely a new player. You play them and you crush them and you're like, I'll send people messages. I'm like, hey, you want to join the gym Discord? Or I'm like, come, there's a bunch of us. We can help you out. And they're just like, no, no, no. I just want to figure out things on my own. I'm like, hey, no problem. Like, I'll ask them, like, I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that. But um, it's definitely changed. The landscape has changed. And I wonder what the game is going to look like in 5 years from now. What do you think is going to happen in 5 years from now? I mean, that's a little bit of a long way, but if Twitch stays the same or doesn't stay the same, but if all things stay the same, the community is 5 years older. So do people start
I
disappearing?
I think I think RTS as a whole is a dying genre, even though the genre, even though specifically Warcraft 3 is such a very unique game where you have a hero and an army, and it's not as fast paced as like StarCraft or StarCraft 2. where your one mistake, you lose your whole army in like 1.5 seconds. It's crazy how fast StarCraft 2 is compared to Warcraft.
Yeah.
Hit points are higher, uh, generally slower. Build time, to build things takes longer. And there's normally not much action for about the first 3 minutes of the game, two and a half, before your hero comes out. So 2 minutes and 10 seconds, or 2 minutes and 15 seconds by a tavern hero. Um, I think if you go 5 years, it's very hard to say because if you look at that, the average age I think would be about 40 for the average player. I think in our era. So you got some players that are late 30s still playing. It comes a point because this is many many years ago. I'm just going to say it like this: that in Korea, they very much said at 30 you should be playing no more like StarCraft. It was very much a big no-no that like, you're too old at 30.
Hmm.
Now you have so many pros that are late 30s that are still just blooming in Warcraft. Granted, there's not the amount of players at the pro level. It's hard because the prize pools aren't there. Okay, I'm not saying that, but when you compare it to like the industry as a whole is very much a net loss for a lot of esports teams because everything costs so much:
Right.
travel, hotel expenses. So if we're sending, say, Happy out from, just say, from where he is to, say, like United States, well, that's like could be $2,000, could be $3,000 for the trip. Was it a 4-day tournament? It's $500 a day for, just say, for the hotel, $6,000 in hope to win 5,000. So it's still a net loss of 1,000 or $2,000. I just financially, I just don't think it's very feasible. Uh, as a player base, it's very tough because we're getting older. I think the hardcore audience is 35 to 40 right now for Warcraft 3, where we need to get the new blood in, like, Kaho, who's only like 24 years old or something. We got a couple other players. I'm talking at the pros, but in the general consensus, it's like you got to get new people in, but it's not a game where it's instant gratification. I think where it's just we are in this timeline of it's now, 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 now. It takes time. The goal takes time, especially in Warcraft, to win the game, to creep this or to do that. Everything takes time. And I just don't think the way people want to do that, I just don't think the game might still be around, but I don't think the player base to what it is will dwindle even more.
A lot of people think it will never happen. Warcraft 4. I think something like that. Maybe it's not RTS per se the way we're playing Warcraft 3, but something of that asset is going to come out, and it's not necessarily a WoW expansion because there's been so many of them. I feel like it could happen, and if it did, then that would be the revival that Warcraft needs, because not only would you bring back or transition the base from Warcraft 3 to the new game, you would be able to advertise that to a new generation of people that never played it, who would be like, I'm going to get into this. It's to me, that's the only way to like kind of like pump new life into the community is that in a quick fashion, right? Um, kind of like the ways they did with Frost Giant did with Stormgate. They're like, we're going to do this and we're going to do this, and they promised all these big things, and they got so much hype behind it, and they had so much money backing, and now they're not really delivering, and it's kind of losing steam. Like Warcraft still pulls in like on any given day, like depending who's streaming, if it's back to Warcraft or it's Grubby or just random people, like sometimes there's like 6,000 people watching Warcraft, or sometimes there's 500 people. Stormgate's getting like 13 viewers every day. Like, and these guys are fresh out of the gate trying to do a new RTS game, and then talking about blocking and the way the units feel and whatever. Like it's so, and they did it in pre-alpha, and the game feels kind of weird. Like I really try to stay positive about them. It's like, you know what, maybe it's something that a lot of guys, StarCraft and Warcraft people, can transition to, because a lot of people want that new game to transition to. Like And then what happens? Meh, it doesn't work out. Promises are kind of empty. People go back. So, like, for example, Baron's playing Warcraft again because he kind of played 1,000 games of Stargate, and it's like, okay, I'll take a break from this now. Like, I don't see what the point is, but there's nothing like Warcraft 3, and just like there's nothing like Diablo 2. I see you playing Diablo 4 a lot, and got a guy at work that's got it. I was talking to Slay Day about it, and they're like, you know what? A lot of guys are just kind of like they lose interest in games, and that's my issue. Is like I get a game and I lose interest in it so fast now. It's like it doesn't hold me in like it used to, and yeah, maybe it's because of my age, probably because I'm up there now. But I'm looking for something like Warcraft. Like I know any given day, if I come home from work or whatever, tired and not, I'm gonna play a game of Warcraft. I'm gonna go do it. I'm gonna have fun doing it, win or lose. But when I go
Uh,
load up some other games, I'm just like, I'm not feeling it.
I, it's so tough because the magic of video games now is just such big corporations. These I treat it like these productions from Hollywood, how they've snuck their way and they put their fingers through all these video game companies, and they do the same thing. It's every company now, where it's these false promises, empty promises, like early access, take your money.
Yeah,
How many video game studios have gone bankrupt now? Um, you know, like there's no soul in games anymore. It's all about what can we extract monetary the money from customers. And that's what it comes down to. How can we hook, line, and sink them, give you a half made product, charge you $70, or, sometimes a monthly subscription, microtransactions. I mean, it's like worse ads than like, Ash Jeeves from 1998. It's just, it's in your face when you log in. Every time you do something, you get another pop up. Hey, buy this, do that, spend more money. It's like you can't just buy the game and they can't complete it anymore.
yeah,
So we'll touch on Diablo 4. I even said to my father a few years ago, um, with the Activision buying up Blizzard, and now Microsoft, I have more high hopes for Microsoft to do something with a lot of the IPs,
yep,
Warcraft, StarCraft. They got the money. But the thing is, too, like, what happens to all these video game studios where they just get bought up and bought up and bought up, that it's going to be pretty much you either play this or you play nothing. You know what I mean? So, and you look how many people are playing classic games still, because those are probably nostalgia, but those are great games. Cinematography, the sounds, music, everything that checks the boxes for a game. You want to be entertained, the replayability. Now it's like, a lot of these games are just, oh yeah, I got 10 hours out of it and there's nothing else to do. Or, and the other thing too, like, what we based on, touched on earlier was technology. I think you are predisposed to have an opinion on a game without actually playing it. So you can have a news article about it, or a video game journalist. I use that term loosely because not everyone treats games fairly. But I'm just saying, like, and then you got other players, the everyday Joe. Here's my opinion on it. So you get predisposed by it without actually trying it.
hmm.
So you get swayed one way or another. Or they could throw somebody a bunch of money and really say, hey, this is a great game. And then you screw 100,000 people out of $60 each, and it's a load of crap. Uh, Games like Diablo 2, Warcraft 3, StarCraft 1, which is still being played professional at the highest level, still streamed on TV in Korea, in South Korea, Pro League, ASL. If if we didn't have the match fixing issues, this goes way back. So I don't know if you're aware of this, Mike, but MDL, which was a Korean league, they actually wanted to there was a guy that was able to edit orc units to make peons build faster, to make that grunts have more HP and regenerate, life regeneration, more. So to make orc look good, uh, so and then so you're having match fixing, and so sponsorships are going to pull out. Sponsors are going to pull out. There's going to be no money to be invested in these games, and it's so hard when like you want Call of Duty, you want fast action games. It's just there's no there's just no soul in games anymore. And as we get older, we have to prioritize our time. Well, families come first. You know, there's not so much of the casual games anymore. It's like you have to sink your life into it. These very grindy games with very little reward.
Well, I think what's happening in all industries is everything's going big, expensive, budgets are crazy. Video games, the same thing with movies. And then you have successes that movies coming out of nowhere with small budgets or some kind of like small indie studio with a small team that made a 2D game and they're making millions of dollars and destroying these conglomerate companies that are like pumping millions into a game. And just, Sony's had a couple fails and for reasons that, you know, uh, couple of influencers or streamers have gotten into already. It's like this is not what your audience wants. So, like, you should know this, and you just spent $400 million on this game. So, maybe ask or know your clientele, or know your consumers first before you put something out. But um, it's possible to make money, but you're like you said, a lot of stuff it's soulless and everything is just about making money and how much can we extract from the consumer. And we don't care if they don't like the game. They're going to go spend $60 or $70 on it, and we don't care if they play it ever again because we're going to put out another one in 3 years and they're going to go buy it anyways. And that's the mentality. But and that's why we go back to these vintage games and these games that actually were made with you know passion, or like people had pride in the games that they were putting together. um Going forward, I mean, we'll try to wrap up, but if anybody wants to be entertained, they can definitely check you out on Twitch at Doomtrain, or maybe your OnlyFans. I don't know if you're still cleaning apartments on OnlyFans. Everybody likes bringing that up and making joking about that, but you're on Twitch. You are on X. I know you're on X. You follow me. I follow you. And let's wrap it up with some couple of like finer points about what's Doom's final thoughts. Like give us like something that you really stands out or is important to you about Warcraft 3, or something that gameplay wise that you think is valuable. Let's say a new player coming in, what kind of advice would you give them?
Don't play 4v4 would be my most valuable advice. I think the biggest thing is as a new player, don't get discouraged. Play for fun, and you really just you have to absorb it all, the good, the bad. But I mean, you get to. I look at the bigger picture of Warcraft is you're in a whole world that doesn't exist in life, and it's really cool that we get so many different units. You get so many different ideas. That's very unique and in contrast from a lot of games. So enjoying the environment. But as a new player, I would say just find a race that's fun for you. Uh, you can follow Bill. It's a lot more easier to get into the game now than growing up. Uh, I could go so much in the history of it, but um, yeah, just enjoy it. You got to have fun with it. It's definitely not a game for everybody. I wish more people played it, but you can spend a million hours on this game and still not master it.
That is true. That is true. But you could be the master persona of Warcraft 3 and still entertain people. Having said that, just want to remind everybody that this is the first official episode of Call to Arms. I'm Mr. Mike. I stream on Twitch. Doomtrain streams on Twitch. We're going to be talking to more people from the community. We might have Doomtrain back on. We might have him even come guest interview with us and get some other guys on here. I think that'd be pretty cool. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and leave a comment below on the video. That always helps. And share it with some of the guys in the community, and we'll try to get some other people on here. Mr. Doomtrain, I appreciate your time. I think you need to go to bed because you got to go to work tomorrow.
Yep, work comes early. No, I appreciate. Thank you for interviewing me, Mike. It's been a pleasure. If anything, just know every day is not promised. So enjoy it while we can. So don't play 4v4.
Don't play 4v4. And having said that, we'll see everybody next time.
Chaos we find.